possible genotypes. Now note they've got a little asterisk here because these are not the only blood types that exist. Okay? But in theory, okay, type O, totally recessive. Type A, you can be dominant or recessive. B, dominant or recessive. AB, the only thing you can be is dominant. So that will determine those antigens that show up on the plasma membrane. It's going to determine what antibody is in the plasma, what blood you can safely receive, and then what you can donate. This is why they, based on when we usually talk about blood types, they usually go, oh, well, you know, O, universal donor, AB, or whatever it is. Okay, so this is the reason for that. Because if you look at O, recipient, okay, they can receive O, AB, or AB. If you are type A, you can get A or AB. If you're B, you can get B or AB. But if you're AB, only thing you can get is AB. That's why when they do the blood transfusions and so forth, they do a lot now with the blood that gets collected, like blood surfaces and stuff. But when they go to type you, like in the case of an accident and everything, they do work really hard to make sure this doesn't occur. This used to be a problem earlier in like the and especially before that, okay, when transfusions began, because the clumping that occurs, if clumping takes place, like if you're A and you're given something A can't receive, B given something it can't receive, that sort of thing, all right, the agglutination would take place. That clumping of those red blood cells, no matter how you look at that, all right, that's bad. Because, and I kind of added this morning because I'm like, okay, well, we talk about, well, what happens if the blood clumps? And I said, well, let me find something that shows what it can do. So it's, you know, hemolytic is one of the terms used with it. But you'll start out with certain symptoms and they will continue to progress. And I can honestly say that I don't know if they have a way to fix this. In other words, if you're given the wrong blood type and these symptoms begin to show up, if it can be counteracted, I don't know. I would have to look that up, okay? But you'll begin to have different symptoms that will begin to show up. And for the most part, leading to death. Because the clumping that would occur with those red blood cells, what happens is they begin to block vessels. So the red blood cells that clump, they'll begin to block the blood vessels, smaller ones first, meaning the capillaries, where exchange occurs, where I need to be dropping off oxygen, nutrients to the tissues, picking up waste, and it doesn't happen. So everything builds up in those tissues. Those tissues begin to die. And then that backing up, that blocking of those red blood cells, as the smaller ones get blocked, that means it begins to push into the bigger vessels. And where do the biggest ones lead to? The heart. Bada bing, bada boom. I mean, that's going to be clumped up, and the heart can't pump that. Well, it doesn't have anywhere to go anyway. Nowhere. So, hopefully, the blood typing is done correctly. This is just another way to show, but this time I've added those positives and the negatives. Because the positive and the negative plays a part. But the biggest reason that positive and negative plays a part is basically at the time of pregnancy. That RH group, that plus or the minus, that's what it's called because they first discovered it in rhesus monkeys, and so they gave it RH, okay? Well, if a person is positive, they've got another antigen on the red blood cell, okay? If they're negative, they don't. So, Emily, can I use the O positive? So being O positive, you would have like just none of the ABO, okay? But you would have something else for the positive and the negative. And if you were negative, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have this other part. Does that make sense? So the times that that is going to actually become a problem is going to be when mom and offspring are different. Meaning, mom, okay, is going to be 1, positive, negative, baby, positive. We're going to see a picture. So, if you are negative and you're given positive blood, you'll develop it, but you'll still live. Okay, so you can actually go from being negative to positive, okay, based on the blood you're given. Which, hey, if it saved my life, I'm okay now being positive. All right, especially since I don't plan on getting pregnant anymore. Okay, I'm told for that. Now, for the most part, they're not normally in the blood, okay, but they are present, okay. So, if an individual is exposed to the positive, like I said, if you're negative and you receive positive, then you develop it. But the only time is at pregnancy. And it's called hemolytic disease of the newborn, or erythroblastosis fetalis. Fetal, fetus, erythro, red blood cell, blastosis, blowing it up. Okay? Therefore, hemolytic, the breaking apart of the red blood cell. So, usually, mother is negative, but fetus is positive, usually from the father. The first pregnancy, nothing really happens. Mom's okay, baby's okay. It gets determined that this took place. They're usually given RhoGAM after their birth, and usually, if they get pregnant again, they're fine. They're given RhoGAM again, blah, 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 they're good. If the person goes through, doesn't get the RhoGAM, and they get pregnant again, here's what's going to happen. Antibodies are going to cross the placenta. They're going to get to the baby, attack those red blood cells. The red blood cells burst. If the baby survives, note the if, okay, it'll be born with HDN, the hemolytic disease of the newborn. And if the baby survives, they will begin treating the baby once it's born. Otherwise, hopefully, the mother they will determine it in the first pregnancy. The mother will get the RhoGAM shot. This crossing over of the placenta doesn't create a problem. The second baby's born fine, third baby's born fine. Any future pregnancies, as long as she continues to get the RhoGAM shot, will result, hopefully, in healthy pregnancies with no HDN showing up. So the only time having the negative and positive as a problem is at time of birth, at the time of pregnancy, I should say, for the hemolytic disease of a newborn. Any questions? take a break. Be back at 1:45.
We